CoronaVirus. Renewed United States Constitution from the dated 1789 to PaRaDiSe third millennium by Amendment 28. The coronavirus was the straw that broke the camel's back. There's no doubt about it now. Living in denial is no longer an option. Before the pandemic shut down, we could always be kicking the can down the road claiming that if it isn't broken, don't fix it. By the look of things, the state as is may not survive the coronavirus challenge. Hopefully it will. But just in case it doesn't, we'll need to create a new constitution. Previous to today's all across the board systemic breakdown, the establishment was already chronically broken as crisis of civilization. Then it became acutely ill with the COVID-19. But this only happened due to unresolved contradictions duly aggravated with time. You can't go back home again, at least not to dead old normal. But home is everlasting, so we still need to brainstorm our way out of this maze. The question in everybody's mind is how deep you have to go to come up with the fix, vaccine, miracle, or else what? My idea is PaRaDiSe XXI Amdt was way off the end field, outside the stadium proper. Then appeared the coronavirus pandemic shutdown and the system's inability to get back on its feet to recover a shade of normalcy. Suddenly, there was a game-changer event that threw hope a lifeline. Economists say that it's solely a question that money can fix. If the economy crashes, well, then get the economy back on its feet. This is the economist's proposition, reducing a complex problem to economics. By this I mean that fixing it doesn't require going into the political constitution, much less anything deeper like the societal ideological underpinnings and the like. There are various scenarios on the horizon. The optimistic is a V, cautiously optimistic a U, skeptically optimistic a W, not optimistic an O, cautiously pessimistic an N, and outright pessimistic an M. You get the idea. The prevailing outcome is that at the same time that you're finding the vaccine, restart the economy. Just take care with social distancing and hand sanitizing to stay beneath the line of hospital capacity by flattening the curve as needed. Open just enough to keep the curve just beneath the healthcare line capacity. This would be a pretty straightforward solution were it not for the fact that the time span of the pandemic is larger than our capacity to cope with sheltering in place within reason. The pandemic is going to be around for many years. The vaccine will take a year or so to develop. But how long can a person stay in shelter or make ends meet without going to work? The risk of contagion is real for anyone going out of shelter to work, to buy groceries, or for entertainment. Either we fix it one more time or else a new constitution altogether. Last deep fix with Amendment 28 of Universal People's Institute or else reconstitution. What we have right now is transitional abnormal, not new normal. America stood on the shoulders of Europe and Asia, leading forward during the second millennium since 1789. The US Constitution led the world in the second millennium, and now is what's holding it back from transitioning into the third millennium. The chain breaks at its weakest link, in this case healthcare, followed by the safety net, and so on, with a domino effect bringing the whole house down. Psychologically speaking, repetition makes for convincing, as is the case with the Montesquieu trias politica of separation of powers into legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. This, added to the success of the United States worldwide, put it above all doubt. However, with the failure of the United States to address the coronavirus challenge, all the while the resounding success of competitors like Red China, though not rusty Russia, has all bets off. But what else is there in store? All these are but palliative fixes, whereas PaRaDiSe XXI Amdt is categorical page-turner solution for all time. Personally, I'm pursuing the chronic crisis of civilization solely made acute of late by the pandemic. By this I mean that irrespective of eventually finding a vaccine and somehow coming out of the pandemic one way or another, of combining sheltering and opening up and coming out, the fact remains that we're living in an unjust world only exasperated by the recent turndown. If one endorses what Leibniz says, that this is the best of all possible worlds, and the consensual corollary that democracy is the best of all possible forms of government, then the thing to ask is how to best serve our democracy. In the previous episode, we concluded with Amendment 28 to the United States Constitution. If the state can no longer provide what's written in the preamble, its purpose, its aim, and its justification, then it's time to replace it with an upgrade restart. Herein, we'll follow through in its implementation in our continuous effort at the development of democracy. If Amendment 28 is unconstitutional, then discard it. But if it's the only solution going forward, then discard the Constitution of 1789 in favor of a newer, updated version. Now, we'll have to come up with a rough draft of a project to upgrade our dualist 1789 U.S. Constitution to PaRaDiSe third millennium via Amendment 28. So, back to the drawing board of things. The problem is that Amendment 28 would clash with Articles 1 of the legislative and with Article 2 of the executive branches, as well as with Article 3 of the judicial branch of government. This would bring about a constitutional crisis which would require a reconstitution of the 1789 U.S. Constitution of second millennium to a third millennium upgrade. Eventually a reconstitution, but in the meantime, let's go along with Transitional Amendment 28. The crisis is profound, meaning that what's put in question cannot be used to decide on the matter at issue to begin with. My guess is the route of the constitutional referendum, or simply use Amendment 28 as arrowhead of change to open discussion of reconstitution of civilization or re-civilization by PaRaDiSe Genesis 1:1a Aleph. The choices for a new constitution of the United States are on the table as follows. They are just a permutation of the three opening articles of the Constitution. In all cases, the preamble remains unchanged. Draft A, Preamble, Article 1, Legislative Branch, Article 2, Executive Branch of Government, then Article 3 as Universal People Power. Draft B, Preamble the same, Article 1, Universal People Institute, then Article 2, Legislative Branch, Article 3, Executive Branch. Or Draft C, the Preamble, then Article 1, the Legislative Branch, Article 2, the Universal People Power Institute, and Article 3, Executive Branch. The intention is changing the least, all the while affecting the most. Adapt the 1789 Constitution to Amendment 28, leaving the rest as is. Upgrade 1789 second millennium to 1789 third millennium Constitution. Both include Amendment 28 and integrate changes to Constitution adhering to Amendment 28, whether to guarantee the interests of the people first and foremost or not, giving preference to those of other interests. In what order? That is the question. This is a rough draft of large strokes, leaving the finishings to the field experts. Let's then put forward the bare bones of a proposal of a new constitution for the United States of America. Qualitatively, the three draft options are the same, with draft A being perhaps the optimal, all things considered. Though I personally prefer no consecutive re-election and getting rid of the Electoral College, as well as allowing access to the presidency to naturalized citizens after 3 years, this being a nation of immigrants after all. These will not be included in the draft, limiting the wording solely to the content of Amendment 28. Then, the new Constitution of the United States of America for the third millennium. Preamble, same. Article 1, Section 1 to 7, same. Section 8, same, but omit, quote, to reconstitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Section 9 and 10, the same. Article 2, Section 1, same. Section 2, same, but delete naming judges of the Supreme Court. Section 3 and 4, the same. Article 3, Section 1, same, but add the judicial power shall be under the Universal People's Institute. Section 2 to 3, the same. Section 4, add the following text, which is Amendment 28. Quote, Creation of the Universal Institute of Rights and Powers of the People, founded on the, quote, "We the people" of preamble, rights retained by the people and powers reserved to the people of Amendment 9 and 10 respectively. The Universal People's Institute will be the catch-all of all rights and powers, not in the essential definition of, on the one hand, the United States or the states, nor on the other hand, the legislative or executive branches of government. In our knowledge-driven age, the university, college, and school is recognized as the seat of crystallization of culture to nucleate into the Universal People's Institute. To further its purpose, it will be autonomous, independent, self-governing, and sovereign, voting solely consisting of students, teachers, and staff. The Universal People's Institute will be in charge of the judiciary, healthcare, high-tech, incubation, startups, social security, education, news media, and all other organizations in the pursuit of justice. Articles 4 to 7 are the same, the amendments the same. Then, this new Constitution of the United States of America should suffice to meet the challenges of the coronavirus moving forward into the third millennium. Well, that's all, people. Yours truly, Rick, your Charro Anusim, and GD Bless. Austin, Texas, capital of the world.